Welcome back to our deep dive discussion on faith and literature. Today we're exploring a provocative view that challenges our traditional understanding of the New Testament.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating angle. It's like rethinking a classic novel from a whole new perspective, right?
Exactly. We're unpacking the idea that the Gospels might not be straightforward historical accounts of a man from Nazareth, but rather they're carefully crafted pieces of Greco-Roman literature. It's a theory
Yeah.
popularized by Dr. Robin Walsh.
So, let me get this straight. Instead of being eyewitness writings, these texts are seen more like literary works, almost like biographies with a twist.
Right. And more than that. Walsh argues that these writings fit within a literary genre called bios, which were designed to convey moral lessons and promote specific worldviews. This is a radical shift from the view that the texts are pure historical records.
And that means the usual hallmarks, like the virgin birth or the resurrection, might actually be literary devices rather than factual reports.
Precisely. It's like saying these narratives were engineered to shape beliefs and imagination, rather than to serve as objective historical evidence. Think of it as storytelling with purpose.
It's interesting because traditionally, many hold that the disciples actually penned these accounts based on what they witnessed firsthand, right?
Exactly. The conventional narrative suggests figures like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were intimately involved in recounting the eyewitness experiences. But Walsh upends that view.
Right.
She contends that there isn't solid evidence that these texts were written by individuals with direct access to Jesus' life.
That's a pretty bold claim. It reminds me of comparing amateur recollections to something like a crafted fable built on literary tradition.
It's like, a story retold with the skill of someone who's steeped in Roman rhetorical methods and literary structures. Walsh notes that the gospel writers were likely educated elite Christians from urban centers like Antioch or Alexandria. They weren't, say, simple fishermen. Simple.
So these authors were more aligned with the intellectual elites of their time, mastering polished Greek and tapping into stylistic models from Homer and Plato?
Exactly. They had the tools and training to create nuanced narratives. And this literary approach means the stories were designed with clear motifs, like rising and falling action, foreshadowing, and symbolic numbers, to subtly promote theological points. It's a deliberate composition rather than mere record-keeping.
But, doesn't that diminish the historical basis of the texts? I mean, if they're mostly crafted to serve a narrative purpose, how do we reconcile that with centuries of faith built on their supposed factual nature?
That's a crucial question. Walsh isn't necessarily saying that Christianity is a myth. She's saying that the texts were composed with a theological and literary agenda. This reframing invites us to appreciate the artistry behind the narratives instead of taking every detail as a literal historical event.
I see. So, in this view, events like the Sermon on the Mount or even the resurrection are more symbolic and metaphorical?
Right on. Walsh argues that these events work as literary devices to guide belief and convey deeper truths, much like allegories in classical literature. They weren't necessarily meant to be scrutinized as historical facts.
It's a bit like when reading a myth, you understand the moral or the philosophical insight rather than a literal recounting of events.
Exactly. And this perspective also lines up with the work of other scholars. Dennis MacDonald, Richard Carrier, and Candida Moss have each highlighted parallels between gospel narratives and literary forms like Homeric epics, or argued that some elements were later constructions to serve the church's needs. It adds up to a broader scholarly trend.
Right. And that naturally leads to another point, the role of oral tradition in these early Christian stories. Did Walsh address that?
She did. Walsh points out that by the time the Gospels were codified between 70 and 120 CE, the oral traditions had already undergone significant transformation. Instead of faithfully preserving every detail, they were reshaped and refined into narrative form that aligned with new theological agendas.
So it's not a straightforward pass-down of events, but rather a deliberate composition process that even involved editing and reworking earlier oral accounts?
Exactly. For instance, when you compare how Mark's account is later modified by Matthew and Luke, you see a clear process of cleaning up the narrative, enhancing the grammar, theology, and even inserting new sections to suit emerging agendas. It's composition, not preservation.
That definitely shakes up the way we might think about the reliability of these texts as historical records.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this theory so intriguing, yet also so uncomfortable for many. If we start to see these texts as crafted literature rather than strict history, it challenges long-held beliefs about the historical Jesus and the foundations of Christianity.
I can understand that discomfort. It's like having your favorite story suddenly reinterpreted. You cherish its depth, yet struggle with the idea that it isn't a literal recounting of events.
Exactly. And Walsh is not suggesting that there's any trickery here. Instead, she's inviting us to appreciate the deliberate craftsmanship behind the texts. By understanding their literary form, we might actually gain a clearer picture of what those texts were trying to achieve in terms of moral and theological persuasion.
It almost seems like, when we reread these texts with an eye for literature, we get to see layers of meaning that a strictly historical reading might miss.
Exactly. It's like peeling back layers of an onion, each layer revealing new insights into the beliefs, the culture, and the rhetoric of the time. This approach invites us to see the Gospels as well as creative works of art meant to transform the reader's worldview.
And this perspective, while academically robust, must be a tough pill for some believers to swallow, right?
Totally. It unsettles the notion that the story of Jesus is a straightforward historical account. Instead, we're faced with stories that are as much about persuasion, moral teaching, and theological innovation as they are about reciting events.
I can see the value in that analysis, but I do wonder, might we risk losing something essential about the spiritual traditions by reducing them to mere literature?
That's a fair point. I mean, on one hand, recognizing the literary craft can deepen our appreciation for the texts. On the other, it might challenge deeply held convictions about historical truth. It's a delicate balance between scholarly inquiry and personal faith.
It's like walking a fine line between academic analysis and respecting the sacred experience many have with these texts.
Exactly. And perhaps that's the ultimate message here. By reframing the Gospels as literary works, we're not tearing them down. We're reconstructing them, appreciating their complexity. It calls on us to engage with our traditions in a richer, more nuanced way.
It really makes you wonder how many layers of meaning are hidden in the texts we thought we knew so well.
Right. And by rereading these ancient writings with fresh eyes, as literature embedded in a Greco-Roman context, we can unlock insights into the dynamics of early Christian thought that go beyond a simple chronological history.
Yeah, this conversation definitely leaves me with, plenty to ponder. It's a reminder that faith and scholarship can, together, challenge and enrich our understanding of history.
Absolutely. Whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or simply a lover of history and ideas, this perspective invites us all to look deeper and question what we think we know. That's the beauty of engaging with these timeless texts.
This has been an enlightening discussion, a journey into the heart of literary craftsmanship and its impact on faith. Thanks for diving into this intriguing conversation with me.
Thank you, and remember, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay open to the layers of meaning embedded in the stories we hold dear.